The college football experience, LSU Tigers 2024 season preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times the amount you enter with their new Pick 8. Yes, sign up today with the promo code TCE SGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. And of course, they have college football when that season comes or coming back around. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCE SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your free 7-day trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm.
This is Mike Leach, head football coach at Mississippi State, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
College football experience, LSU Tigers, we Tigers 2024 season preview episode. As we keep the music just playing here, look, I mean, big year, I think this is the most exciting year in college football in my lifetime, and a lot of it has to do with the uncertainty. We got obviously your national champion Michigan, Wolverines. Jim Harbaugh leaves for the NFL pending a investigation. He was going to get suspended, I think, the whole year. But then Nick Saban, legendary coach. I know LSU fans rejoice. Nick Saban is retires, and you got these just conference realignment, and you have a 12-team playoff. Last year, LSU was 9-3. Could they have been in the 12-team playoff? Perhaps.
Thank you. Well, this is a great way to get started, and I haven't even won all my games yet. It's a great day to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family, and we are so excited to be in the great state of Louisiana.
But more importantly, he says after that, classic. It's been a couple years, but Brian Kelly's Southern accent, absolutely fucking hilarious to me.
Still funny.
Still hilarious. And look, if you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, my name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
Pretend it never happened. Get it along with your life. Look, 9-3 at a lot of schools. Great year. But myself and this next guy and the other guy who does the podcast with us, who's not available today, Patty C. We were calling for LSU to go 11-1, 10-2 a season ago with talk of maybe being 12-0. That did not happen. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for the DFS god himself. Come play college football DFS with us. We do a DFS show in the fall every single week. Give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, tobacco road living, the free lock giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's going on, man?
What's going on is the LSU Tigers. Now, here's the thing: you finally get Saban out of the SEC, specifically, but it happens to fall the same year that there's no SEC West anymore. So it's like, damn it! But they're still going to play Alabama. It's a protected rivalry, but also you finally get them out, and then Texas and Oklahoma come in. This year, I think is just going to be absolutely insane throughout the whole year. Specifically, you look at a team like LSU a year ago, 9-3. They would have been right on the cusp of the college football playoff, probably in if I had to bet last season. So in one way, you're saying if we repeat last season, we might get in. But at the same time, LSU fans, they say, hey, we want to win. What the hell's going on? 9-3 is a down year for us. What's your
I don't
thoughts?
think they would have gotten in last year. If you look at, say last year, the SEC got 4 teams in. Well, they would have had to leapfrog either Ole Miss or Missouri, who had a better record.
And Ole Miss had the tiebreaker, but they did beat Missouri head to head.
True.
So,
Yeah, I mean, look, Brian Kelly. I mean, we all thought it was a great hire, and it's not like it hasn't been a success. He has 2 10-win seasons with the bowl victories. Actually, Brian Kelly has 7 straight 10-win seasons going back to Notre Dame. That's a pretty nice stat right there.
let's talk about this though, because I'm going to play devil's advocate. I did think it was a good hire, even though I thought the shoe didn't really fit as far as him in Louisiana. But as far as like football, I think he's a fantastic coach. But let's talk about this a little bit, because I actually think, he's 20-7 in 2 years at LSU. The reason why I bring that up is Ed Orgeron was 19-7 at 2 years at his first 2 years at LSU. Year 3, Orgeron went 15-0 and won the national championship. And then just 14 months later, he was fired or something like that. Les Miles was 22-4 in his first 2 years at LSU. And Nick Saban was 18-7 in his first 2 years. And I'll even give you Gary DiNardo, who was 17-6 in his first 2 years. So he's right on track, really, with kind of all those guys minus Les Miles. He's 12-5 in SEC play, but this is where it gets interesting to me. He is 2-6 against 9-win teams, 9-win Power 5 teams. That is not good. 1-1 against Bama, 0-1 against Georgia, 1-1 against Ole Miss. Now he has 2-0 against Florida, but Florida's had a losing record both years.
Right.
1-1 against A&M, 0-2 against Florida State, 0-1 against Josh Heupel in Tennessee. In a way, I think you could say that's not as well as I thought it would be. I thought he'd be better in a way. And I have some other nuggets. Patty C is a skeptic on Brian Kelly. It's more than us. I think we believe he's a good football coach.
He's won wherever he's been.
True, but I also would say, and this is the question I think we have to ask ourselves here, is Patty C correct in terms of like, yes, he wins, but Notre Dame should be beating Wake Forest. You know what I mean? Central Michigan should be beating Buffalo. Cincinnati, with the Ohio talent there, should be beating Temple and Rutgers. But that's what I did a deeper dive on this career record against big schools. He's actually struggled with the exception of USC. So he's 1-3. This includes, his tenure at Notre Dame. And all of his stuff. 1-3 against Alabama, 0-3 against Georgia, 3-5 against Michigan, 1-2 against Oklahoma, 3-4 against Florida State. He has 8-3 against USC. Now, a lot of that was the Clay Helton Sarkisian era, where they were, I believe, under Sark, they were they had violations. They couldn't recruit fully. But 1-1 against Texas A&M, 1-1 against Texas with Charlie Strong there. 0-2 against Ohio State, 1-3 against Clemson, 0-1 against Penn State, 4-3 against Michigan State, 0-1 against Cincinnati the year they made the playoffs, and 5-6 against Stanford. I think Patty C does have a little bit of a point. Then maybe he's right a little bit that with the same level of talent going up, maybe this is a situation that he essentially maybe is a little overrated in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, who does have a good record against Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and some of the teams on that list. But your point's taken. Can he put LSU over the top? Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's hard to have LSU as a pretty good team, just considering the resources they have, the talent that comes in there, regardless of who the coach is. So in that sense, you could say his first 2 years have been, I guess I'd say, a slight failure, even though he's winning 10 games, which is kind of crazy to say. But
the expectations, though, they fired Orgeron 14 months, 16 months, something after a national championship, or maybe it was longer than that.
I don't think LSU fans are happy with 9-3 seasons. I think they want double-digit regular season wins and success in the postseason. Now he did win the SEC West in year 1, and then he just had a Heisman winning quarterback. Those two things are not easy to do, and you have to give him at least some credit for those accomplishments.
Yeah. But I will say, all I'm saying by saying this is I don't know that I agree with this, but I mean, a little bit. I would say Patty C has opened my eye to the fact that maybe he is a guy that can't get it done at the biggest level. So we'll see. Folks, we're going to talk about the offense, the defense, special teams, go game by game on the schedule, talk about the transfer portal, what left for the NFL. But before we do that, I want to tell you that you're listening to the College Football Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And right now, we got the Stanley Cup fired away, and we have our hockey gambling podcast guys are running a Stanley Cup contest. So get in. Still might be able to get in on this thing. $100 SGPN gift card, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Stanley Cup. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8 is now live for the NBA Finals. Create entries with up to 8 picks, and Underdog will automatically double flex entries. So you can miss your, up to 2 picks and still win your entry. With more picks to make and extra ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever. And the best part, you can win up to 325 times your original amount you enter. You can now use specials and boost on all flex entries as well. So don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. Hop on over there, underdogfantasy.com. Use that promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Underdogfantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. Oh boy, yeah, I couldn't find my LSU shirt. I have an LSU shirt. I had to go with the New Orleans Breakers. Keep it regional. They need to bring them back. Bring them back. But I've been to LSU. Baton Rouge, going to Tiger Stadium is one of the best experiences in college football, in my opinion. So you get out there, you get a chance to go to a game. Make sure you hit up. I don't give a shit who's coaching. All right. But yeah, let's dive into last season because they did lose some players to the NFL draft. Not as many as you would think on a traditional year in a way, which is crazy because you got 6 guys drafted. But Jaden Daniels,
3 in the first round.
Yeah. Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas Jr. Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. at the wideout spot. And folks, if you're not watching youtube.com/the college experience, I have graphics that make it look a lot better. If you listen on the audio side, that's fine too. But I do think the show is best on YouTube in a way. So get on over there, hit that like and subscribe button. Losing those 3 at the skill positions, and then the defensive line taking a massive hit with defensive tackle Mason Smith going to the NFL, as well as defensive tackle Jordan Jefferson and defensive tackle Mekhi Wingo. Going to be hard to replace those ones. Obviously, the Heisman Trophy winner is going to be super hard to replace. But as you see in the chat, and by the way, shout out to the chat because they're from all over planet Earth. They're coming in here.
International flavor today, huh?
Yeah, Winnipeg, Canada, checking out the LSU Tigers. We got Helsinki, Finland.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Helsinki. I see. I don't even know. I haven't been. I know Mike Leach, friend of the program, coached professionally in Finland. The Pori Bears. Shout out to the Pori Bears. I think I got that one correct. Helsinki. There we go. He says he's not sold on Nussmeier. So we'll see. We're going to talk about that in a second. But how about this? To go 9-3 when you have this is pretty fucking crazy. They were number one in scoring offense per game in the nation. 133 teams last year. This year's 134. Number 1 in the nation, 45.5 points per game. That's number 1 in the SEC. Well, how about in yards? Oh, they were number 1 in the nation in yards per game. 543.5 yards per game. Number 1 in the SEC. How about passing? They were just 3rd in passing. They couldn't get it together. 3rd in the nation in passing, 338.9 yards per game. 1st in the SEC. That's 1st in the SEC, all 3 categories. And then rushing, 10th best in the nation, 204.5 yards per game. 2nd best in the SEC.
Which a lot of that was Jaden Daniels too.
Well, that's the thing. And if the rushing stats drop off, it's going to, which I expect it will, that's where it gets interesting. But man, to waste all those stats, you would assume this team would be 11-1 if you saw.
Yeah, until you show the defensive stats, which I'm sure you're about to do, because they were a very unbalanced team. The offense was fantastic, and the defense was pitiful.
Yeah, and I see Robert Martin in the chat. Yeah, we'll get to defense in a second. Offense first. But Robert Martin bringing up the fact Matt O'Dowd transferred out to Marist, the Red Foxes. Check out the FCS college football experience because we talk about that a lot. The offense returned 6 starters back, and I put 6.5 in a way because Nussmeier did start the bowl game. Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback, son of Doug Nussmeier, former NFL, quarterback and offensive coordinator there in the NFL. They bring back Kyron Lacey at the wide receiver spot, as well as Mason Taylor, and 4 out of 5 back on the offensive line. And you got to love that. And the fact that Nussmeier has got reps with them. I think not only did Nussmeier start the bowl game, I believe he came in multiple games. The Alabama game, Jalen Daniels got knocked out of. Also, they were blowing out, I think it was Grambling and a few other teams, maybe it was Army. He got some reps last year. So in a way, I feel like you should note him as kind of a starter back, no?
He hasn't played a ton, but he's definitely played some. And in that bowl game against Wisconsin, he did throw for 395 yards and 3 touchdowns. I know LSU fans are very excited for him. Also, he had a big spring game, which adds.
He's a stud, dude. I know. Our friends in Finland are questioning. I think he's going to be a stud.
I mean, it's fair to question when he hasn't played that much. I get it, but everything that we're hearing is that he is a stud and he's going to fit in very nicely. So at this point, we're not there for practice. We don't know, but at this point, I think they're going to be okay at the quarterback position. Is it a drop off from the Heisman winner? Probably, but maybe not that much of a drop off.
Well, I can tell you this, it's surprising. In the portal, years past, they had gone out and been a little more aggressive on the offensive side of the ball. They brought in AJ Swan. What are you looking at, Swan? Go back to your home. I liked what he did at Vanderbilt. So that's a nice get for some depth. They brought in Xavier Thomas at the wide receiver spot for Mississippi State. Disgusting. But CJ Daniels coming in from Liberty, both those guys making up for some of that production that left for the NFL.
I think it should be noted that CJ Daniels on a run first team in Liberty last year still had over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. And Xavier Thomas had over 500 yards himself on an offense that struggled. So obviously with those receivers being drafted in the first round, there was a need there. And Brian Kelly went out and got a couple guys who should, contribute right away.
Yeah. Let's talk about what they lost because Tavion Falk. Look, it's never good to lose a Falk at LSU. You got to keep him on the roster just to do it. From Kevin Falk to who was it? Trev Falk they had in the defensive in the linebacking core back in the day. Anyway, George Hamsley heads out to Tennessee State. Matt O'Dowd, the chat was talking about him. He heads out to the Marist Red Foxes. Running back Trey Bradford, the North Texas. Armani Goodwin at the running back spot to UAB. This one is substantial here. Running back Logan Diggs heads out to Ole Miss, who beat them last year in a crazy Big 12 style game, 55-49. That's a huge loss, in my opinion, or that's one to note. Some of the other ones you're like, okay, these are backups. But RJ Willis, also wide receiver, hit the portal. Wide receiver Kai Preen goes to Tulane. Wide receiver Jalen Brown heading out to the Florida State Seminoles. Tight end Jackson McGowan to Wisconsin, and tight end Connor Gilbreth to the Boise State Broncos. Also on the offensive line, they lost Joe Cryer to Southern Miss, Lance Hurd to the Tennessee Volunteers, and offensive lineman Marlon Martinez to Mississippi State. There's a few schools in there that are surprising. You know what I mean? Like if Florida State's coming in and grabbing Jalen Brown, Florida State just beat you back-to-back years.
Yeah, but I mean, Jalen Brown didn't do much last year. I had the stats up, but he was buried on that depth chart at receiver. Obviously, they had a lot of receivers. Yeah, I mean,
they had 2 first-round draft picks. So I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen how good Jalen Brown is. Could he be missed? Is there some depth concern there? Sure. I think Logan Diggs is a surprising one, like you mentioned. And I'm also surprised that they didn't go after a running back in the portal because Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson, the duo expected to get most of the carries this year, they're solid.
But Emory just announced, I believe, yesterday that he's coming back. He had entered the portal. He's coming back to LSU. So they did kind of figure it out. He didn't kill it, but he was a big-time recruit for them. So maybe they're a little more sound at the running back spot.
And what helps running backs is a really good offensive line. And I know LSU fans believe that their O-line might be the best in the country. It's a top 10 unit nationally, and that's going to go a long way in helping, the run game and the pass game, obviously.
Yeah, and that's co-offensive coordinators there, Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton, I believe, running the offense there. And that's what's going to be. You think this offense? What can this offense do? What's the like? There's no way you're going to put up as good as numbers as last year, but I would still think you could be a top 10 offense.
I think if you're an LSU fan, you want a more balanced team this year. You want your defenses. That's really the question mark is defense. I think the offense is going to be just fine. Is it going to be as prolific as a season ago? Probably not, but hopefully it doesn't have to be. So yeah, I think they take a step back. But I think when you start off with a really good offensive line and supposedly a really good quarterback, I think they're going to be fine offensively.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about this defense here, because you jump over to the defensive side of the ball. This is almost unbelievable to me. So last year there was 14 teams in the SEC. This year it's 16 with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas. They were 78th in scoring defense per game, giving up 45.5 points per game. That is dead last in the SEC. Vanderbilt had a better defense than LSU, and Vanderbilt didn't get 3 defensive linemen drafted. The fuck, it doesn't make any sense, right? Then, in total yards, they were 105th in the nation. They gave up 416.6 yards per game, dead last in the SEC. Once again, shocking to me. Pass defense, 115th in the nation, giving up 255.6 yards per game. I'm sorry, I put first in the SEC. That's actually dead last in the SEC.
I thought that was an error.
Yeah. Then in rush defense, they were 85th in the nation. That was 13th in the SEC. So, what a like that. Those are remarkable stats.
And that's why the defensive coordinator last year is no longer on the staff. And that's why they brought in the guy from Missouri,
Blake Baker. Now, here's my only question regarding that. Blake Baker, they beat Missouri last year.
True.
Right? and a game where they scored 49 points in Columbia, Missouri.
To be fair, LSU was dropping those amount of points on pretty much everybody.
Still, I just think it's hilarious. Like, let's go out and get the guy that we dropped 50 on.
That's true.
Right? But Blake Baker did a great job at Missouri. Former Jeff Tedford guy at Fresno State. They lose some guys in the portal here, though. Defensive end Jackson Howard heads out to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Defensive lineman Fitzgerald West to the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana Lafayette. Defensive lineman Quincy Wiggins heads out to the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime. Defensive lineman Bryce Langston to FAU, the Owls. Defensive lineman Tyge Hill to Oregon State Beavers. Linebacker Christian Brathwaite to Willie Fritz and the Houston Cougars. Defensive back Deuce Chestnut to Syracuse. He just came in from Syracuse a year ago. Defensive back LaTerrence Welsh to Arizona State. Denver Harris, which was a 5-star recruit, to UTSA. And then you had defensive backs Ryan Yates to the Cal Golden Bears, as well as Jeremiah Hughes in the defensive backfield to Michigan State, as well as Ryan Robinson, another defensive back to Iowa State. That's a lot to lose. But I guess if you were fucking horrible last year, this is one of the most confusing things to me, because you look at recruiting rankings, LSU kills it.
They've had 3 top 10 recruiting classes under Kelly.
Well, this doesn't make any sense to me then. Then are these players? I understand the defense was ass last year, but you also got 3 guys drafted on the defensive line. So you would think if you have a good defensive line, you got good things going. You're bringing back your whole secondary from a starting standpoint for the most part. I think they have like one guy that's gone, but did they just whiff on all these recruits? I don't believe that this could be the case.
Well, it seemed to me like Kelly and LSU went in the transfer portal very heavy last year. They brought in a bunch of guys in, especially some of those DBs, and also like Jefferson, who they had drafted. I think he came in from West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And obviously that didn't work. And now you see some of those players that you mentioned are already transferring out, like the guy from A&M and the guy from Syracuse. So going very portal heavy last year did not work for this defense for whatever reason. Maybe we're not sure. Maybe it was the scheme, and that's why the DC is gone. Maybe it was these players got a big stack of cash and were fat and happy. Who knows what? But it seems like
my theory of the SEC turning into the old Big 12. Which is where every team I know Mike Leach passed away, God rest his soul, but I'm saying every team is running like air raid or veer and shoot.
Yeah.
And you get these crazy scores. You saw it with that Tennessee Alabama game where they took the goalpost. Some of these SEC scores are like 55-49 now. People haven't given it the same amount of respect because Georgia can actually play defense, but a lot of these teams out there.
And there's a school of thought that your defense is soft if in practice you go up against like an air raid type system, because no air raid team has ever really had a really good defense that I can think of anyway.
The best would be the one that was the 2000 Oklahoma team, that won the national championship. But that was kind of pre everyone doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
it seems to me like Kelly this year is going to rely on those top 10 recruiting classes and the players that, he's building up through his program rather than going after all these big name portal additions. So we'll see how that transpires, but it can't be too much worse than last year.
Well, they did. They returned 6 starters from a year ago. Savion Jones, the only guy back on the defensive line. That normally is a red flag when you do this. I know this has kind of changed. 7 years ago, we were doing this. It was a lot easier to say, well, that's a red flag. Now you can just go to the portal and get a starter somewhere else. Harold Perkins, one of the stupidest things I thought 2 years ago, we saw Harold Perkins like dominate the Arkansas game specifically, but he was an amazing freshman. And they moved him off the edge and put him in like the middle. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing? You have a guy that's like Derek Thomas. You know what I mean? And you're not utilizing his skill set. That was part of what's wrong. And I think Blake Baker, if he's going to take one look at that defense, he's going to say, what the fuck are we doing? We have Harold Perkins, who's one of the best players in college football, if utilized correctly.
Right.
And I put that on Brian Kelly, man.
Sure. Like, ultimately he's the guy in charge,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So exciting though, because he's going to be back, I think, in his natural position. Greg Penn, also another linebacker, comes back. The secondary, like I said, does return 3 guys: Zy Alexander, Major Burns, great name, and free safety Sage Ryan. But still, you only bring back 6 starters on offense and 6 starters on defense. That's not a ton. But they went out in the portal. They were aggressive. They brought in Gio Pays, I believe, from Wisconsin. Javier Suggs from Grand Valley State. Wow. Brian Kelly's old stomping grounds, D2 football.
I wouldn't say as aggressive as last year, though.
Not at all. Defensive back Austin Osbury from the Auburn Tigers. Jair Brown, another defensive back from Ohio State, as well as defensive back Jordan Gilbert from Texas A&M. You saw Denver Harris didn't work out for them from Texas A&M a year ago. We'll see. Punter Blake Osendorf from La Tech also comes in. They were not aggressive at all this year, man.
Right.
Makes you wonder.
Kind of surprising, but I guess being aggressive a year ago didn't work. So they're trying a different approach with a new defensive coordinator. I think you have to be concerned about the defense because it doesn't appear like they've upgraded talent all that much. But maybe just a different scheme with some younger, hungrier players will work out well for them.
Yeah, and I mean Blake Baker did do a good job at Missouri. Like he held Josh Heupel's offense, I think, like 7 points. But I'll also say the SEC East, there were a few offense that I just didn't really trust.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like Florida's offense hasn't been great.
Right.
South Carolina's offense hasn't been great. Kentucky's offense hasn't been great. And we know Vanderbilt's offense hasn't been great. So like, did you dress that up because of that? I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch because the defense only gave up over 30 points. I think it was twice last year. And that was 3 times. No, it was twice. It was LSU and Florida were the only 2 teams to get above 30 points against Blake Baker. Held Ohio State to 3 points in the bowl game. They didn't have their starting quarterback or Marvin Harrison Jr. That means nothing to me.
He did have, I think it was 5 defensive players drafted last year at Missouri.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
So
it's
maybe his development is a lot better than who's the DC leaving again?
It was, who was that? I'm drawing a blank right now. It was, who the fuck was it?
I forget.
Came with him from Notre Dame.
I think Zachary Martin in the chat could help us out there. But either way, obviously LSU needs this defense to play a whole lot better than last year. My hunch is that they will, but do they become a middle of the pack SEC defense? Matt House. There you go. Thanks, Zachary.
There we go.
Can they get to middle of the pack? If they get to middle of the pack, then I think LSU could be in store for a decent season. I don't think this is going to be one of the top defenses in the SEC, but just some improvement over last year is going to be required.
Yeah, let's take a look at this schedule because, first off, let's take a look at the win total. Set at 9. Last year was 9.5, but the SEC, no Saban, but you get in Oklahoma and Texas. Okay, so it's at 9. I ate shit on this over last year. I felt very good on it being over 9.5 a year ago. To win the SEC championships plus 950, to make the 12-team playoff invitational, yes at minus 110, no at minus 120. Okay, whatever. And to win the national championship plus 1600. Any of those? I mean, I know we're going to go game by game on the schedule here, but do any of those just stand out right away to you?
You know, I think there's a lot of question marks with this team. I don't know if I'm going to be playing a bunch of LSU futures. I think their ceiling is high. I think their ceiling could be on an over. It could be on a playoff berth. I don't know if they're good enough to win the SEC or definitely not the Natty, but this is a team that could rebound from a pretty good year a season ago, or they could kind of be in that same 9-3 boat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it could be.
I don't see them dipping below 9 wins. So I feel pretty good about the over because the worst you're going to do is push that, right? What's the juice on that? I didn't look.
You have it at, let me see if I can quickly find it. I did look, but I just don't recall as I was preparing Kentucky as we're doing this. So kind of threw off my memory on what the hell
I'm asking tough questions. This podcast.
I know you're fucking killing me here.
I can look that up. What about you? What are your initial thoughts on those, four odds?
The overs minus 120, the unders plus 100.
Okay.
So
I mean, minus 120 isn't that much juice to lay if you like LSU this year. I think that would be my direction just looking at it on the surface.
Yeah, you think back at last year, the defense can't be worse. So to me, my first thought, now we're going to go game by game in a second here. My first thought would be give me the over. Cause I just can't see them going 8-4, but let's jump into this. But before we jump into it, I want to tell you folks out there that the college football experience, LSU Tiger style, is brought to you by Rhythm. If you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm. That's RITHMM. Rhythm gives you a menu of best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props to put your money on in a matter of seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team full of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning their algorithm to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm also pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident in your picks. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best player props, all backed by AI data without you needing to endlessly scroll through some random sports book. So what are you doing, folks? Claim your free 7-day free trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. We're also brought to you by Naira Bets. Yes. Look, if you like horse racing, you got to check out Naira Bets. All right. You got to hop on over there. And if you do that, I know the Belmont Stakes just how great was that race, by the way? Did you watch that race?
I did. Yep, yeah. Fantastic.
A lot of fun there. And look, get on over there and check it out because no one covers horse racing like Naira. So what are you doing, folks? Hop on over there and sign up. And when you do, you get a free bet, $25. All right. And a $200 deposit bonus. So what are you doing? Go to nairabets.com/SGPN25. All right, we are back. 9 wins is the total, the over-under for LSU. Let's jump into this thing because week 1, Sunday, September 1st in Las Vegas. USC for 2 years was trying to back out of this game.
It's a fun game.
I just love the fact they tried to back out of it. Fucking cowards. Yeah, I'm not taking USC now.
I don't think so. I mean, did you watch how USC ended last year, losing 5 of their last 6 regular season games?
And I just told you Brian Kelly had a knack of beating USC, but I will say that was pre-Lincoln Riley. But
well, he's also had a knack of losing these openers also.
That is true. He's got a little Mike Gundy to him on these openers, but I think this will be LSU fans will go to Vegas. You kidding me?
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna
like
be
LSU
50-50
here.
crowd. I think LSU's got a better roster right now. I think that's why USC was trying to get out of the game because
Yeah.
they realized, hey, our roster is going to be shit, and we're joining the Big Ten.
Is this the Grant Nussmeier coming out party? I mean, USC's defense last year was almost as bad as LSU's. He could very well have a very big game here and put himself maybe on even like a Heisman map.
I will say this: Miller Moss looked pretty fucking good in that bowl game against Louisville too, though. Now that was Louisville, but hey, Blake Baker, you do get Lincoln Riley game 1. This is gonna be Ole Miss. Let's be honest, this is Ole Miss LSU all over again.
I mean, by the way, the line is LSU -6.
I think I'll take the points there, but I think LSU will win the game.
I agree.
LSU wins this game, but this is once again, I don't know. My guess is Baton Rouge is going to be overreacting to Blake Baker after week 1. Overreacting, like meaning they should fire him.
I got you.
Is what they're going to say because I expect this to be like 52-45.
It should be a shootout.
Yeah. So, but I favor LSU there. I got them 1-0. You do too?
Yep, agreed.
Nichols comes in. Okay, 2-0. How about this one? Heading to Williams-Brice. This one that's not often. I feel like it's like once every 20 years with the way the SEC does this 8-game conference bullshit. So now there's no more divisions. Heading to Williams-Brice. It's a great environment, but I gotta take LSU here. 3-0.
Yeah, I mean it's a big game because it's a game LSU should win, and LSU's schedule overall is very manageable. So just take care of business, and beat the teams you should beat. But any trip in the SEC on the road, has potential for a loss. I am going to take LSU here, but I would just say be careful with it.
And next, this game seemed a lot scarier a couple months ago when Chip Kelly was still there. But now Deshaun Foster comes in. They're hosting UCLA, and I don't even know if it was scary then, but I just thought UCLA was looking to still be like an 8-win team. No, I don't know what to make of it now. They had a bunch of players leave.
UCLA is not going into Death Valley getting a W.
No way.
No way.
So 4-0, and then the South Alabama Jaguars. They're getting 2 new coaches in their first 5 games, or that's got to be encouraging. And then 2 coaches on the hot seat in Lincoln Riley and Shane Beamer. So they should be 5-0 heading into that bye week.
That's the way I see it. Could they drop one to USC or maybe at South Carolina? Sure, it's possible, but I think they're better and will be favored against all 5 of these teams.
After the bye week on October 5th, they are hosting Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Ole Miss got them last year. I don't see Ole Miss going into Death Valley and getting that dub. So
Ole Miss has not won in Baton Rouge since 2008. I kind of agree. It's a revenge game from last year, and look, LSU at home. I mean, that's a significant home field advantage. So yeah, give me the Tigers again.
Now here's an interesting one. You got the battle for the boot, the golden boot or whatever. The Arkansas game, man. Brian Kelly. He's living on the edge in these fucking games. They should have lost 2 years ago in Fayetteville. They've won by 3 both years, right? Pulled Pork Pittman's going to be coaching for his life. That's a dangerous game with Texas A&M looming. This is a back-to-back away spot. I'll take them to beat Arkansas because I think they're better than Arkansas. But I've been impressed with the way Sam Pittman has played LSU specifically.
They've been a lot of close games, but LSU has a 7-1 record versus Arkansas over the last 8 years. Could they could drop this one, but I do think, obviously, I think we're probably going to agree here is that they drop one of these road trips right here.
I got them losing at A&M. They haven't won it. When's the last time they won at A&M? That crazy.
I know the last 6 years, each home team has won. So over the last 6 years, the record is 3-3 with the home team winning each time. LSU drops one of these road games, probably the second one at A&M.
Yeah, I think A&M gets them. I think Elko will have a defense to give Nussmeier some trouble.
But if you're 7-1 going into your second bye, I think you're pretty damn happy as an LSU fan because if that's the case, then everything that you want is still on the table, and that is an SEC championship berth, a
national
championship
playoff berth. Out of the bye, they are hosting Alabama and Caleb DeBauer. I favor LSU. DeBauer, they've had so much turnover. Now I won't make it like, to me it'd be LSU -3, you know, at home against Bama. But I think right now LSU's in better shape than Alabama, just from a team consistency standpoint. And the fact that's at Baton Rouge and in Death Valley at Tiger Stadium there is all the difference to me. They won it. Brian Kelly's 1-0 in against Bama as head coach of LSU in Tiger Stadium.
I kind of say make it 2-0. I see Feach in the chat says here's where the wheels fall off, but we don't know how good Bama's going to be this year. And again, I don't have LSU. I don't think they're going to lose any home games this year. So
yeah,
I have them going 9-1, or I'm sorry, 8-1 right here.
Bama lost a shit ton of players in the transfer. It's brand new coaching staff. I think it's too much to ask them to win in Death Valley year one. It wouldn't shock me, obviously, because they're Alabama, but I favor LSU. And then they head to Florida. Now the question is, I don't think Billy Napier will be coaching this team by this point.
That's a huge question. If he is, I can see them dropping this game. But if he's not, and the season is in complete shambles for the Gators and players have quit, then I think LSU wins it. Tough to say right now. I think I have LSU dropping at least one more game. So it has to be either this or the home game against Oklahoma.
That's the one that I think is super scary. So after Florida, they're home to Diego pissing Pavia and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Watch out now.
So if you're doing the math, you got Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and South Carolina, 3 of the 4 worst teams projected in the SEC on your schedule. You have to like that as an LSU fan.
Yes, and then the season finale, November 30th against Oklahoma. This is the most dangerous game on the schedule to me. Like, I mean, the most dangerous game is, I rank these, if you're wondering what the numbers are on the right, of like their hardest games from 1 to 12. But the Oklahoma game to me is a scary game because you could lose. You could be in a spot to play for the SEC championship game, and Oklahoma come in with house money at 7-5 or whatever, because or 7-4, or whatever, 8-3, whatever. And to me, it's kind of like it's kind of like the Alabama game. I think Oklahoma will have, and another thing is Oklahoma's going with the youth movement. Dylan Gabriel moves on to Oregon. Jackson Arnold, super talented young quarterback, they're going to give the reins to. By the time he plays LSU, he's basically he'll know what the hell a starting quarterback is in the SEC or in college football in general. So it makes the game a lot more dangerous to me. I still think this is a smash over though.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a second loss on the schedule somewhere, but much like last year, I expect LSU to probably be 10-2. I don't see. I mean, paint me a picture for an 8-4 season and an under.
They'd have to lose the USC. The USC game, which that's how I got fucked over on. I had a big wager on LSU over last year, and I had them beating Florida State in the opener, and Florida State just took a doo-doo on them. And then that pretty much after that, I didn't think they would lose to Ole Miss. They did. I still think this is a smash. This is one you might hear me say in the locks episode, and I think this is I find this year's college football so interesting because take Georgia, for example. If Georgia loses, so we just went through and pretty much said LSU probably going to go 11-1, right?
Not about probably. I think my record is 10-2, but that certainly is in reach.
Well, I'm saying, let's say the USC game's the second loss.
Okay. Or the Bama game,
Well,
sure.
The reason why I say USC is because that means you could essentially have Georgia get fucked out of or Texas get fucked out of the SEC championship game.
Because unbalanced conference schedule.
Yes. When you have this many teams in a conference, which is just stupid. Let's be honest. I mean, you look at the Big Ten, it's like 47 teams are in the conference. You're not going to get the best 2 teams in the playoffs, but the winner gets an auto bid on these conference championships. So it's good. I guarantee you that you're going to hear some fed up fan bases, because I'm telling you, you look at the way Missouri's schedule is constructed, you look at the way Texas A&M's schedule is constructed, and you look at LSU's, to me, and you can even throw Ole Miss in there. Those 4 have very favorable SEC schedules. Georgia, Texas, Alabama, I don't think it's as much. So you're going to have some pissed off fan bases, because I think it certainly could come down to a tiebreaker, or the fact that LSU only lost 2 games and one of them was in the non-con, and there was no head-to-head matchup So
I'm curious as to what the tiebreaker will be. Is it like
they haven't announced it yet in the SEC, which I find convenient. 'Cause
I could see both Missouri and LSU being 7-1 in the SEC. And
that's what I'm saying. I could see.
Of course, there could be about 5 teams that are 7-1 in the SEC or something. A&M, Georgia, Florida, not Florida, Texas.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting for sure. But LSU, if we're right and LSU is 10-2, I think they're hard to leave out of the college football playoff, regardless of what happens with the SEC championship game.
Yeah, but I think what makes it interesting is like you potentially could have a situation where a team plays a much harder schedule.
And the other thing is that, sorry to cut you off. What if LSU makes the SEC championship game and loses? Does that loss go against them? And a team that didn't make the SEC championship game, do they?
That's what I'm saying. It's so stupid. Like you can't have this many teams in a conference. They're setting themselves up, and they should get rid of the conference championship, but they won't do that because it makes a shit ton of money. It just sets them up. You almost want to not play in your conference championship game. Well, yes, you want to and win because you get the bye week.
Yeah,
but
I mean, same exact scenario. LSU and Texas end the year 10-2. LSU has a tiebreaker. They go to the SEC championship and lose. Does Texas get the nod over LSU? I'm just any. Well,
we saw this in the 4
team.
If USC didn't make the Pac-12 championship game, remember it was a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
USC, Oregon State, and Utah had the same record or something, but USC got in to play Utah. Utah beats them. Had USC not played that game, they would have played in the playoffs.
Right.
So it just makes for they're going to need to expand it right away because fan bases are going to go fucking irate. I'm serious. Like I guarantee you they expand it in the next 5 years because someone is getting left out. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be teams that have the more aggressive schedule. I don't think you're going to get the best 12 in essentially.
Right.
So,
and I mean, there's always going to be a debate, even with the basketball tournament, when you have 68 teams. There's always, this team on the bubble deserved to be in, but especially it's worse, when you only have 12. So I agree. I mean,
they play 30 games in college basketball, and there's a tournament after that. 30 regular season games. Like the schedule difference. Let's be honest, man. Look, LSU's schedule is much lighter than Texas's schedule this year. Texas plays. Obviously they play the Red River Shootout in a neutral site. They get at Michigan, the reigning national champions. They're hosting Georgia. You know what I mean? There's not that on this schedule. You get Alabama, but Alabama's bringing in a brand new head coach. So I don't know. I think but to me, I think you load up. I think you take some of that plus 950 to win the SEC. I think that's great odds because I think there's a good shot they're playing in that game.
Yeah, if you're playing in, you got a chance. So the more you mention that, the more you're convincing me.
I think that's what you play. I think you play the over on LSU 9 wins, and I think you sprinkle the plus 950. 12, even the 12-team playoff, but the odds aren't juicy enough for you.
Yeah.
So just play the plus 950 to win the SEC championship. Hope that tiebreaker somehow gets you in. And shit.
I don't know. There's just so many teams that could make the championship. I'm going to leave my bet here just on the over 9 wins.
Really? Because plus 950 is incredible.
But I mean, what are you going to bet 4 teams, 4 different SEC teams that have similar, odds to win the SEC championship game? Or are you going to because
I don't think the odds are as good though. Like
what was the Missouri odds? We just did that preview a couple days ago.
Hold on. I can find that for right now but I know Georgia, I think, is like plus 150 or 200, but
Missouri was plus 1,500.
I think I trust LSU more than I do Missouri.
So let's look at odds to win the SEC. Georgia plus 190, Texas plus 320. Are you going to take either of the favorites?
No.
Ole Miss plus 600?
No.
Alabama plus 850?
That one's a little bit appealing just because.
You think so?
Well, I mean, I'm on the under with Bama, but I'm just saying, Kalen DeBauer he's got a track record of never losing games. But
you're gonna sprinkle LSU plus 950, A&M plus 1,800.
Yeah, those are the 2 I like most. Probably, I would say Missouri is worth it just because of the path as well. Like those 3, because I don't see I really don't see Georgia and Texas playing they play each other in the regular season. I don't think that will happen in the SEC championship.
I do think Georgia's better than Texas. But I think if you have one of the longer shots, I think you want Texas to get in the SEC championship game over Georgia, if only one of them is going to make it. And they play in Austin this year, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
But it's the
Texas,
week after the Red River Shootout, though.
Yeah. So if Texas can win that game, which is obviously a big if, because Georgia doesn't lose very often, but maybe that would force Georgia out. Who knows? I mean, it could be a rematch in the SEC championship game of the two favorites.
Well, look, I locked up the over last year on LSU. I ate a big old bag of shit. But I'm going back there, I think, man. I think on the locks episode, I don't see how they're not a 10-2 team. Like, to me,
I love it at 9. Last year was at 9.5. At 9, I don't see. I mean, I think the worst you do is a push. So I'm right there with you. I'm going to put some money on them.
Let's go, folks. That's our show. All right, just like that. But just know that we're breaking down all 134 college football teams. Yes, it's 134 this year. Kennesaw State's in the FBS now. And guess what? We're going to dedicate a whole hour to Kennesaw State and Utah State and Hawaii and UMass. The same amount of time we're going to give Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma State, whoever, right? So subscribe. We do this shit every year. All right. We got some great guests. Just had June Jones on the show. Check out that one. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started here. We got the Kentucky one coming soon. And then obviously the rest of the SEC. And we're not going the previous years we've gone alphabetically. This year we're going conference by conference. So starting off with the SEC, we've already done the previews for Alabama, Auburn, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia. That's up Missouri. They're all out there. Go listen to those. And buckle up because we're just getting started. After that, we go to the Mountain West. And after that, the Big Ten. So Mike in the chat saying LSU 10-2 regular season. Yeah, hit that. And got to get Coach O as a guest. I'm trying to. Someone put me in touch. Man.
I got a connection.
Yeah. Who's got it? I'm at the Colby D on Twitter. All right, hit me up.
Maybe just hang out at that gas station where he got the chicken on a stick and see if he shows up.
That is true. that alligator on a stick too. I bet I could see him doing that. Love Coach O. He needs to be back. I've been lobbying that he should be the next coach of Louisiana Lafayette or Louisiana Tech. Both coaches on the hot seat this year there. But we need him back in college football. We Tigers. Give NC Nick a follow on Twitter at NC__NICK. Also, the College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. And don't forget, youtube.com/the college experience. Hit that like and subscribe button because we're just, like I said, we're just getting started. Check out the FCS College Football Experience as well as the Stadium Heads podcast. LSU fans, go check out the Stadium Heads podcast. Myself and College Football Campus Tour, aka Michael Barker, breaking down every college football stadium in America, essentially in the FBS and the FCS. And even after that, we might dive into D2 and D3. So go check that out. We're going to explain why college football is the greatest fucking thing to ever hit planet Earth. Talk about the history of the game, the stadiums, and why each stadium's unique and each game you should get to, and tailgating. LSU knows about tailgating. You'll want to check that podcast out. Get the SGPN app in the App Store and Google Play Store. And don't forget, every Friday night we are on VSiN. That's Brent Musburger's network. If you get YouTube TV, you get VSiN, VSIN. So check us out every Friday night. Until next time, folks, this is the College Football Experience, LSU Tiger style. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And the whole team's looking and the whole world's looking with the cameras. Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And you know what you're getting, cause the books we written with the gamers. Everybody's trying to stop this team, but we keep on knocking them dead. They make opposing coaches wanna cuss and scream and fool their head.